first, welcome everybody to, I think this is the 5th week of the POP Baking Club. Are you this thorough in other areas of your life? Yes. Yep. It was actually a problem, and I realize I can't make everyone in my family do everything the way that I do. So it's good to have these skills because unlike it causing perfectionism, it actually takes the pressure off of everybody is what I found. Woo woo! So it's cute. Somebody asked me, how do you join the baking club? We all know the only rule, the one rule of baking club is that you have to tell everybody you know about baking club. This baking club, the POP, the practice of pastry, is about me lecturing and demoing a recipe every single week that you guys pick, that I tell you everything I know about it, I show you how to do it, and then we come back on Sundays and fill in all the blanks. So that's what we're doing today. I'm going to start with pâte choux. First, I'm going to do a fit check, which is I'm going to pull my hair back. I don't have any jewelry on. I have short fingernails, no nail polish, no jewelry. I'm going to take off my sweater. I'm going to have a clean apron on. I have work clothes on so that they don't get caught or cause problems in the kitchen, because that's a big reason why we wear our chef coats and everything, is to stay safe and clean. Those are the two big reasons we wear the proper uniform. And I have good kitchen shoes, which are clogs. These are really old. My dance goes. I just need to get a new one. But here's a trick about dance goes. Do not order them online because they are hand finished. They are meant to be tried on in person and then mixed and matched so that you get two that fit, because no two are alike. So I've ordered them online before and got one that didn't fit. So I have to just get myself to a Nordstrom's or to one of the stores that carries them. So I am real quick going to pull my hair back and get my apron on. Give me 2 seconds and we will get started. Okay. So I don't like pulling my hair back in the kitchen for obvious reasons, even though you see people do that online all the time. But your hair should be up when you're in the kitchen. If you're following people online or you're buying cakes from people that do not have their hair up and they have a ton of jewelry and nail polish on and long fingernails, I would say that you need to think about how are they treating your products and can you trust them, basically. So we are doing the pâte choux tonight, and I've made it twice this week. I've had a wonderful time exploring. Okay, so I'm going to turn the camera so you can all see what's going on, and I'm going to sanitize the countertop, wash my hands, and I'm going to set up for the pâte choux. All right, well, let me clean the countertop. How's everybody doing tonight? I'm going to start with washing my hands and doing sanitizer. I use this spray. It's just a disinfectant spray. And I use a paper towel to keep it clean. I've got my IKEA induction burner. I may need to push this back so you can see the whole countertop. And unfortunately, it's not a real TV studio, so I don't have the best lighting, but I will do my best. You can see everything. This is on your wish list. Just know, because I've designed kitchens at school, like kitchen labs, all induction burners use a lot of electricity. So you be careful where you plug it in, because you don't want to plug it in with something else that's drawing a lot of electricity. And I actually got an extra outlet and drew a little bit of electricity so that it wouldn't blow. So it kind of has its own circuit, which is good. So keep that in mind. I like this, but it does slide around. I would like one that had a little bit more of a grip, which sometimes you don't know till you buy the equipment. All right. So I'm going to show you the ingredients. These are the ingredients, and I put this recipe that looks like this on my link tree, okay? And on here, we are doing this middle one. This is not a very big batch, and I would argue that you could easily double it without causing yourself any problems. I wish I had, but it's nice because it's manageable, but on the other hand, I would have liked to have more to pipe. But I'm always making the batches too big, so I'm glad that I didn't. But I'm just telling you, if you're practicing, make this size. It's nice and small. It's about 1 pound 9 ounces total, but you can easily make it bigger. And this recipe lives on the link tree, and I use scale, grams mini scale and grams regular digital scale. I don't use cups or spoons. So you have to have a scale to do these recipes, but I have lots of examples of scales that are affordable, and I encourage you to make the leap. So anyway, we're doing down here in this column, these are the amounts, and the beauty of a pâte à choux is that the ingredients are simple. So we'll start with what is a pâte à choux. Pâte à choux means a dough of cabbage, and that's because cream puffs sometimes look like a little cabbage. They look like little cabbages. And it's the kind of dough that is a two-stage dough. So you cook it partially on the stove top, and then we're gonna beat off some of the heat and add eggs, and then you pipe it and you bake it. So it's like 2 stages. And what I want you to look at when we're doing this recipe, because now that you have been here for a few weeks and it's not compressed into just a 4-minute video, you've gotten a lot of details about how important moisture is. And pâte à choux is one of those recipes where moisture is so important, because if you don't have enough, you'll get a cream puff or a puff that loses its shape, can't hold its shape. And then if it's too dry, you're going to have other problems. Like it's gonna crack and be brittle and not taste really great. So the moisture is going to come in from your ingredients, and then you're going to cook them so that you're removing some of the moisture, but not all of it. And then you're going to be adding eggs, which has more moisture, and you don't want to get rid of it all then. And then when you go to bake it, the cream puff or the pâte à choux becomes a puff that has a thin, crustier exterior that holds all that moisture. So the leavener is steam. The water that lives inside the ingredients steams and puffs up that shell, and you cook it till it's brown. Let the moisture out of the oven, turn the oven down, and then you dry it out. And then when it comes out of the oven, you can fill it. And that's where you can make things like a cream puff, profiterole, which is with ice cream in the middle. The cream puff is with chantilly cream. You can make beignets. You can make a Paris-Brest, which is the circular pastry that commemorates the bicycle race. So the round looks like a bicycle wheel of the race between Paris and Brest. And it's called Paris-Brest, and you fill it with a cream. I am going to be making gougères, but not here tonight. It's going to be in a video, so you'll be able to see it. And a gougère is a savory version of this. And I am going to use Gruyere, and I'm going to fill it with a savory filling, which is like goat cheese and some herbs. So and I'm also going to make a crémeux, and that is a gelatin-based mousse. And I just got sheet gelatin in the mail today. My gelatin had gotten old because I hadn't used it. So I just got gold sheet gelatin in the mail today, and I'll be making that. So there will be a couple of extra recipes through the weekend that you can use to fill all of the shapes that you make with the pâte à choux. Yep, you can make churros too, and those are fried. So the wonderful thing about the pâte à choux and all of the fillings is you can flavor the cream. You can steep coffee into the cream. You can steep tea and all kinds of things, just vanilla if you want. So the possibilities of flavor combinations are endless, and the shape and size of making these puffs is up to you. So you can make éclairs, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how to fill and finish, and how to store, when to freeze, when to bake. So all of that is, a chai cream puff sounds so good. That's a great idea. So as I go through this, you're going to have questions, but I want you to continue to think about some of the fundamentals we've talked about. One is, a lot of people ask, and instead of asking what can you substitute or how can I make this different, I want you to try to watch this and take in what the foundation is, what the fundamentals about it are, and then if you were to change things, what would happen. So I want you to think like the ingredients, and I'm going to tell you what they do and what lives inside each ingredient, and then how they work together. That way, when you go to find a recipe, you can choose the recipe that works best for you. And on my Substack, I put all of my notes for tonight's lecture and everything I know about pâte à choux. And very interestingly, I have this graph, and on here I compared my school pâte choux to the Suez, CIA, and Gislin book, and then I compared it to the Milkweed Inns, which I got to make when I was up at the Milkweed Inn with Chef Lane Regan. So this is so amazing because the one that I used in school is identical right down to the 1% to the Suez. Identical. And then I also put down the kind of flour that was used. So my recipe tonight uses pastry flour. Some recipes use bread and some use all-purpose. So the CIA's was the most different. The Gislin's was close, but it's my least favorite, and it does use bread flour. Bread flour just gives you so much structure, you don't get the tenderness that you want. We're gonna start with the recipe. Sometimes when I get going, so we'll move through because once I start cooking things, it's gonna move fast. But let me show you my ingredients. Okay, so I scale this way where I make a label, and on the label, I put the name of the ingredient and the amount. Because when I'm scaling, I just have a stack of lids, and I scale everything I need, and then I divide them up onto trays so that I know what my recipe is. And then I take these amounts and I compare them to the center column, and that way I'm double checking. And I put these in order that they go in the pot. These things all go in the pot together, and then this is added, and then the eggs are added last. So this recipe is written in a way that for me is visual, and then these are a visual representation of what's going to happen as well. So I'll show you what I mean. Whole milk at 125 grams, and you can follow along if you have your recipe. And take notes. I encourage note taking. You have an old, unreliable oven. I always recommend getting an oven thermometer. You can dial it in. I never have a good oven. I move a lot. Okay, so water, 125 grams. I'm going to stack them because they're all going in the pot together. 110 grams of butter, unsalted European butter. Mine's 82%. And then I have sucrose and salt, and 140 grams of pastry flour and 200 grams of whole eggs, okay? And then this is my tray, and I'm gonna need it again because I'm gonna be sifting my flour. You have to sift pastry flour. Okay, so I have my induction burner, and this is my pan. And to know if a pan is induction ready, a magnet sticks to it, okay? This is a little bunt pan I got from Nordic Ware, I love it. Okay, so that's gonna go on here, and I know it's induction ready. Not all of mine are, and from now on, I'm going to be buying only induction ready pans because things are changing. A lot of new builds don't even have gas or anything anymore. It's only gonna be induction, so I just kinda wanna be ready, and I like an induction burner. I have these little mini SOS pads that I love, and I just cleaned it because I made it twice yesterday. In the butter, we have ingredient functions. We have fat, water, and proteins. The water is important to the pâte choux. We need that moisture, and the fat is important for flavor, and all of the dairy proteins are important. I'm going to save this sticker right here. The dairy proteins are important for flavor and color, okay? And then I have milk. Whole milk is the only kind of milk I use. Everything in here is room temperature. And never is it more important. And thank you so much for that question. It is never more important than when you're making pâte choux that your ingredients are room temperature. When I talk about in all of my videos about emulsification, and I say emulsification happens more readily when everything is the same temperature, I also mean it happens more readily when things are, warmer. So warm ingredients are better. If they were cold, they would just off each other. But when they're warm, we are more likely to get them to go together and like each other. It's basically trying to get all these people on the dance floor to start connecting and getting together, because we don't want everyone just bumping into each other. You want to be dancing with each other, and that's what we want our ingredients to do. With our whole milk, it's dairy. So in our whole milk lives water and dairy proteins. The dairy proteins are going to give us color. We want the crust of the outside of our choux to be nice and golden brown, and we want it to have a creamy, yummy flavor. If I used all water, that'd be cheaper, but it wouldn't have a lot of flavor, and it wouldn't be as richly colored. Milk also is a tenderizer, as are the egg yolks. They give us tenderizing properties. So the reason we do a 50-50 milk and water is because we're getting the best of both worlds, and it's going to be less dense than if I used all milk. So don't have the urge to switch out for cream or make it richer. Think about what is in there, because cream and milk have different amounts of water and that sort of thing. So the 5 grams of sucrose, just a little bit of sugar, is really to add a little bit of color and help with the crust, but it adds a little bit of sweet. And if you were going to make a savory, you'd swap out the sucrose for pepper, okay? And then I have 5 grams of sea salt. I'm keeping the stickers, and I use extra fine sea salt kind. It's in a blue container, Boylan, I think. That comes from, most grocery stores carry it, not all of them. So I am going to put these ingredients into the pot, and I'm going to add the butter, and the pot is not on. I do not have it on, it's cold. And normally I would be doing this really quick, but as I demo, you'll see. I'll get started once I kind of get to the other ingredients and tell you what they are. So the butter, so you can see I have my tools back here all nice and organized and ready for me to use them. That just makes my life easier. I don't have to run around. So I have the butter. I have a dish bin down there too. So the butter goes in the pan first. Pan is not on. I put that in there first so that it doesn't splash. It's just like another little insurance policy against making a mess. And you want to scrape and make sure that you get everything out, even the water. And then the salt and sucrose. Okay, those go in there. And the reason I'm going slow is just so I don't make any mistakes or forget anything, okay? So I'm going to take the eggs, which I know are 200 grams, and I'm going to keep them over here ready for later, okay? I'm not going to accidentally pour them into my pot because physically I moved them over here. That's a signifier that they're going to go into this bowl later. The other thing I'm going to do, and I will move this back so you can see it after I do this portion, is I'm going to sift my pastry flour. I have 140 grams of pastry flour. And the other thing about these deli cups is I really get used to seeing the amounts. It's also a physical representation of how much is in here. I'm less likely to get confused if I accidentally grabbed one that's really full and I'm thinking, that's not 140 grams. That looks like a lot more. This is a King Arthur unbleached 8% pastry flour. If you don't have pastry flour, if you can get as close as possible to 8% protein content, you can call the companies, find out what it is, Google it, try to zero in and get as close as you can to this. But if you have to go up to AP, that's fine, but choose an AP that has a low protein content, like White Lily, that has a much lower protein content than a King Arthur all-purpose flour. And because there are more starches and less protein in a pastry flour, it clumps and sticks together. So it's imperative that we sift it. I'm gonna sift. Oh, here it is, I moved it. I sometimes organize myself right out of the way. So I usually use a half-sheet parchment and a tammy. I don't know what brand this is, but it's just common and basic. And I'm going to sift right onto the parchment, and I'm not going to put it back in the deli cup because that will recompress it. And I don't like touching the food. I like to keep my hands off it as much as possible, just as a habit. It keeps me cleaner, and also I think that you end up with better quality product by habitually leaving the food alone. So I can actually take this guy and move it over here out of the way because I don't need it yet. The other thing that I have that I need is an IKEA cork. I'm going to put this on the counter because I need to take this pot off of the heat and put it right here when I'm ready to add the flour. And I'm going to add the flour all at once. So we are going to melt this out and then bring it to a quick boil. I don't want to boil it too long because I will boil off moisture. And when we get to the right texture, we will know it's ready. But if we boil off too much water, we are going to end up with too dry of a dough. So I'm going to have to add warm milk to it, which actually I need to get milk out of the fridge. So I will have the milk on the ready. It's not warm. I'll have to stick it in the microwave for 5 seconds just to knock the cold off of it. I am going to start to melt out the butter. And then once the butter So I start on a little bit lower just to control the heat, but I don't want to evaporate water. So I'm just gonna melt out the butter, no big deal, and then I'm gonna crank it up and bring it to a quick boil and then pull it off. I'm not gonna let it boil for even 5 seconds. And I will tell you, this is a very similar situation to when you're making a ganache. If you cook off too much water when you're heating up the cream, let's say you walk away and it poofs up and you lose water, you're not going to be able to get a stable emulsion. So I'm not saying you ruined your ganache, but that's what happens. Moisture is so very important. And so for this recipe, you cannot replace brown butter. I know that sounds like it'd be really yummy and it'd be a nice flavor, and it would, but you'd have to replace the water. And you can do that, but just keep all factors in mind when you go playing around with it. And again, I always recommend you do these recipes once, the way that I've written them, and see what happens and take notes, and then you can go playing with it. And also, if you find other recipes and you start to do the baker's math or compare recipes, you can find the recipes that you really like, because the ones I'm suggesting, I've researched a lot and I trust them, but you might be looking for something different. I don't know. I loved looking at the baker's percentage. That told me so much. All right, so I'm going to turn it up just a little more. So once this comes to a quick boil, there's really nice just butter and water. It's all melting. You can see it. I'm going to dump the flour in all at once, and then I'm going to stir rapidly with the spatula, sort of smearing it like that to get all the flour hydrated. Okay? So then I'm going to put it on the heat again, and I am going to cook it while moving it around. It is going to be drying out, and it'll begin to leave a skin on the bottom of the pan, and eventually will turn into like a roll, and that'll give you an indication it's ready to go in the bowl. On the paddle, which I'm going to paddle until it cools down a little bit, and then I'm going to start adding the eggs. All right, so if you guys can see, I want to bring it up to, all right, so I'm going to stop it. I'm going to pull it off. There's no need to question. You don't want to go longer. I'm going to pick up the pastry flour. I'm going to pour it right in there. And before I put it back on the heat, I'm going to hydrate the flour with the moisture, the butter, the water, the milk. And then I'll put it back on the heat. And I don't know if you can see. Almost looks like lumpy cream of wheat. But I don't want chunks of flour left, so I'm going to make sure that I kind of get it going. All right. And then I'm going to get it on the heat. Because you can see the steam. Oh, there's some flour stuck. You can see the steam, and that is all moisture evaporating. All right, I'll put it back on. All right, I'm gonna put it there. Let's see, I don't want it to be too high. And then I'm gonna stir it around. I'm gonna get the corners of the pot. You wanna go around and then through. Smear it out. And then pull it down the middle. We're gonna do about 30 to 60 seconds. You can go up to 3 minutes depending on what you've got going on, how high your heat is. Maybe you have a range, I'm making a mess, that has a low flame. I don't know. But if you have a nice high heat, keep it moving, and you're gonna watch the moisture escaping, okay? That's where the nuance comes in. And if it ends up too dry, I can remedy it. But I want to pay attention so that next time I'm building really good muscle memory. So that, and also I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, it's not quite there. You know, what does it look like? What's happening? Once I bake it, if it's not what I wanted, I can think, did I cook off too much moisture? I can take notes, and then I can go back and do a better job next time. Get it closer to what I want. You want to shake the pan and see if it's coming together in a roll, and it's starting to leave a little bit on the bottom. It's looking pretty good. Let me see. There it is. See how it rolls up? Might go just 1 second longer. It's very smooth. I don't have any chunks. But the biggest thing people do is not cook this long enough. You are cooking the starches, but if you go too long, you start to relax the proteins, which you do not want to do. All right. So I think I'm done. Let me just stir it like that and see if I can get a roll. Okay. And then it's going to go in here on the paddle. And I'm going to hit it quick just to bang off some of the steam. And then I'm going to turn it down to low medium. And I don't know what number it is because I don't look, because I just do it according to what I need it to be, which is about this speed. So that's pretty warm. All right, so I'm done with my induction burner. I'm going to move it out of the way. And we have all this nice room to work with. Once I get this going and into a pastry bag, then I am going to actually show you the frozen pâte choux that I piped and that I have all ready to go. Now I'm going to take all of the ingredient tapes and gather them together, but I'm not going to throw them away. I'm going to put them aside until I'm sure that I haven't missed an ingredient or that I don't have a question. Because even if something goes wrong in a little bit, I can go back and look at these amounts and say, uh-oh, I took the wrong egg. Because I scale out like 5 and 6 recipes all at one time. Can this be made with a hand mixer? Yes, and in fact, one of the ways that you don't overmix this is by doing it by hand. So what we're doing right now is cooling it down, and it should get to between 110 and 140. So if you think we're at 98, let's just say we're 100 degrees. You know, you want to be able to keep your hand there, and it's pretty hot. So it's just moving around. It's really important that the eggs are room temperature. If they aren't warm, they aren't going to go in here. And I need to get a nice cohesive mixture so that everything is ready to go when it goes in the oven. I get a nice, tender, golden, crunchy exterior and a soft, open inside. Because the only thing that makes this do what it does is steam, is nature. It's amazing. There's no yeast, there's no baking soda or powder, just steam. Like, I just think it's amazing. And it really is magical, and I think that if you can dial this in, this is something you can freeze the dough in the raw state, or you can freeze or refrigerate them once they're baked and then refresh them. So it's just the most flexible thing you could ever do. Okay. This is going to take a minute. I have my oven preheated to 375. So let's talk about how these are cooked. My freezer products, I give them 3 months, and that is for quality, not for safety. 3 months, and then I feel like in a home freezer, they've kind of had too many adjustments and they can start to degrade quality-wise. In the refrigerator, raw dough, only a couple of days. Really only 24 hours or less, and I left mine overnight. And you have a choice. I took my pâte choux dough, put it in a deli cup, refrigerated it overnight, and then I piped it and then froze those. But this, we are going to pipe immediately, and then I'm going to freeze it, and we are going to bake the ones that are already frozen. I personally like to bake from frozen because you get really nice steam and a really nice reaction, and I just don't want the temperature that these are to go in the oven and not get that really, really great reaction. Plus I like topping them with the choux topping, which I made a video of the other day. So I wish I had a convection oven. The best oven you can have for pâte choux is a convection oven. A lot of fancy ovens have a vent, meaning you can open up the vent. So when it's closed, the oven chamber gathers steam to it. I mean, not steam, you're not going to look in and see steam. But there's moisture in there, and then when you open the vent and turn the oven down, it dries it out. So you are going to have moisture that allows the expansion of the puff, and then you're going to get rid of the moisture and then let it dry out so that those cell walls, all the starches and everything, they dry out. And when they dry out, they stay nice and firm, but the inside stays soft and moist, not damp. And we can break one open to see where we are, and that's how I test them. unless you've dialed it in and you know your oven, but I haven't made them a ton in this oven. So a convection would be best. I don't have convection, so I'm going to do mine at 375. As soon as I see it puffed and there's a little bit of brown, I am going to open the door, let a little bit of steam out, close it back up, and turn it down to 350. If you have a convection oven, you can do 350 and 325, but because I have a conventional, I'm going to do 375 and 350. And that's all in the notes that are on Substack. Is there a freezer that would work for longer than 3 months? Thinking about chest freezers, yes. When you are looking at quality of freezing, you are talking about how often does it get opened? Is it going up and down and having to, readjust all the time? Are there things in there that are stinky? If you have a fridge freezer like at home, that's one chamber actually, and all the smells they're all over. And then the other is how deep of a freeze is it? Because if you're barely at 31, that's not the same as if your freezer's a good 14. Can you overmix yes, you can overmix. You can let off too much moisture. So this is a good temp. I can touch it. I'm going to add it's about half of the egg, and you want it to be fully incorporated before you add more. And so you don't want to add more than half. Some recipes will have you add it kind of all along. But each time you add egg, you want to wait until it's completely incorporated, and you don't want to speed it up. We don't want to aerate this. We don't want to bang it. We want it slowly to come together. So let me show you what it looks like. So this is what it looks like now, and I'll turn it down. So you can see that it's becoming a little creamy. Let me just scrape the edges. There's nothing wrong with stopping it and scraping the edges. This is a non-invasive way of getting everybody together, because you're not moving anything. You're just, giving it a chance to incorporate a little bit better. All right, so that's what it looks like. It's not cohesive. It's kind of stringy, but that's going to help. And then I will show you what it looks like when I add one more egg, what happens. Okay, so it's going to disperse, but it's not, you see that? And my eggs are warm, so that's not it. That's just the nature of them coming together. Now I could do this just real fast, just speed it up for 1 second, and then back down to medium or to low. But you can see it's coming together, but it absolutely is not doing it immediately. So emulsification is when you take time, temperature, and technique to get these things together. All right. So I have just a little bit of egg left. I'm going to scrape it one more time. It's looking a lot better. And then here, I'm going to teach you the trick for knowing when it's done. It's all about knowing when is it done. Can't just look. You have to, and when I learned it, I was excited. So I'm going to show you. So we are doing, for those of you who just joined, I like to give the last leg a bit of whisk in case. Normally it's funny you say that. Normally my eggs are whisked before I scale them. You don't need to stir them. It doesn't hurt to stir them. I usually estimate all my eggs and mix them. Don't worry about that so much. So I'm not going to stir these together, but you can. And I normally do, which is hilarious. You guys catch everything. It's so funny. I don't even know what to say. So smart. So smart. And this is not your first pâte à choux, which is amazing. The recipe for the pâte à choux is on the link tree. You guys are the best. All right, so here's where the trick comes in. I'm going to scrape, and it's not 100% mixed. I'm going to make sure I don't have any bits on my paddle. And I will show you what I have going here. This is what it looks like. I'm going to scrape and make sure. So I'm going to mix it a little bit more, but I'm going to check where it is. See how it's making a V? And I'm not shaking it or anything, but it's coming off of here. That's a good sign. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of milk into the microwave. And I'm talking a tablespoon. This is whole milk. It's the only kind of milk I use in the kitchen. I'm going to put this in the microwave. I'm going to show you exactly why I'm adding a little bit of milk. Okay, let me make sure. So at this point, I'm going to be evaluating this dough. Is it done? I'm not going to keep mixing it. I'm going to say, is it done, or do I need to adjust it? You do not want to add more eggs because you will make the end product eggy and tough. But you can take your hands, and this should be elastic. See how it's got nice flexibility? That's good, but I'll tell you what the trick is right now. Okay, the trick is when you stir it, will it fall off the paddle in a V on its own without shaking it off? And it's actually perfect. I'm not going to add the milk. Now, if it were humid out, or if I did not cook off that much moisture, I would not have used all my eggs. The amount of eggs that you use is at your discretion, and it's based on all the indicators that we talked about. So I'm not going to add the milk. Okay, but just know that if it were too dry, and the way you would know is it would not run. It wouldn't run. It would, I'm going to wipe this later. Everyone always asks how my 30-year-old mixer stays looking good. I clean it really well, but I'm just going to move it for now. I clean it between every use very carefully. So I am going to scrape this off of here. And then I'm going to put it into a pastry bag, and then we are going to talk about the ones I've already piped so that I can get those in the oven. And then I'll come back to piping these and talking specifics of the makeups. Ugh, okay, it's a mess. I just like to get every bit, but it's kind of time consuming. I take so much of this out of my videos because I take a lot of time doing it. You can use your hands, but again, I don't like to. I don't mind if it's a giant batch of something, putting a glove on and doing that, but I don't like touching product. Okay, into the little dish bin, into the dish bin. So this is my setup for putting the pâte choux directly into a bag with a tip. If you add too much liquid and it doesn't hold its shape when you're piping it and everything, you have to compost it. You cannot revive it. So it is really important when you add more warm milk, if you got too dry of a dough, that you do it a teaspoon at a time. Because you can always add more, you cannot take it out. So I can refrigerate this overnight, but for tonight's purposes, what I'm going to do, what I'm going to tell you, I love compost. We have a thing in our town that does it, and we take advantage of it. And I researched it a lot when I was teaching in real life, and it's the single most important thing that you can do is compost. If you are not a really good piper, you are going to want to put this in the refrigerator overnight and let it firm up a little bit. It'll make it easier to pipe. This is more to handle because it's going to be a little runnier and softer. I'll show you how to do it. This is how I do this, okay? And I'm only going to pipe one shape tonight, but I'm going to show you others. This is around, typically you want to do a 9 or 10 for a choux, smaller for a chouquette. This is a French tip. See the French circular. That's really nice for a design for the Paris-Brest. And then what I have in here is a little bit bigger, and it's just a round tip. So you would put the tip into the bag. You would cut it off with the scissor. This goes into a deli cup with this down like this, and then you fill it. And that is how I am going to do this. Now, okay. The reason I like this, and I've seen people online say things like chefs don't really do that, and I don't know why people would put it in a cup like that, but I'll tell you exactly why. And they actually do. I learned it in pastry school. It's so that you can scrape off the edge and keep everything clean. Now you don't want to fill a bag too full. It just makes it really hard to manage. But this is a small batch, as I said before. And I want to get everything out of here. If you want you could take your dough and put it into a deli cup, cover it to touch with plastic, put a lid on it, date it, and label it, and put it in the refrigerator overnight, and then pipe it. Or you could put it into a pastry bag, and this is a plastic pastry bag, and I'm not going to go, you can twist the tip, put it in like this, close it up, and put a lid on it. And then label it. And this could go in the refrigerator. So then tomorrow, you're all ready to pipe it. And I do this with Madeleine batter and some other things, but this is a really great way to do it. But I also like the deli cup for storing it like this, okay? So I'm gonna leave this here until we need it. And then I'm going to set up the trays of frozen product that I have going on. If it's raw, you only want it in the fridge overnight to firm up. So you can store it for 24 hours, but if you haven't made a good emulsion, you might come back and find that it's expressed some of its water. So a strong emulsion is when you lock in the water and the water can't just sort of float around. Same with like if you're doing a chantilly, if you didn't do low and slow and create a really strong emulsion, it's gonna weep. Or meringue, you're gonna come back and see water in the bottom of your bowl. So 24 hours. I freeze them, so I like to bake them from frozen, which is what I'm going to do right now. And baking them chilled would be just overnight, because obviously it's not. I don't like baking them from this temperature. I like to get the cold so that high heat is causing steam. It's not melting out the butter. If I were to put this in the oven, it's just like, what's the other thing that leaches? Oh, like when you make a croissant, if it's not cold, the warmth of the oven is going to melt the butter. But if it's cold, it's going to take longer for that to happen, so you're going to have steam instead. So let me get the frozen stuff. These are my trays, and what you can do if you want is take a cutter, a cookie cutter, or a pastry cutter. If you want to make guides, and you take a Sharpie and you draw on the parchment, if you're going to pipe directly on here, you don't want to do it on the side of the Sharpie. You want to flip it over or else it'll transfer to your food, which won't make you sick. It just looks bad. But I use this, and I don't need a guide, but I did when I first started. And so this is reusable. When you put this underneath a Pâte, you can see through it. And then when you're done, or it can go in the oven, obviously, but then afterward you just pull it out and reuse it. If I wanted to pipe directly onto the parchment, I would work very quickly, because if you pipe that pâte à choux onto parchment and wait a long time and then put it in the freezer, it's going to stick to the parchment. If you do that with Pâtes, it's not going to happen because nothing will really stick to the silicone. But just so you know, if you pipe and bake on parchment, you need to move quickly if it's going in the freezer. I suggest if you are in a rush right now, I'm going to pipe this and stick it in the freezer. And then it's in the freezer, and as soon as they're frozen, you put them in a bag. And let me show you what I have. So then those are my circles. This is an éclair stencil, 9 centimeters by 2 centimeters. And then this would be a 3-inch Paris-Brest. So this would give me the guidelines to make a nice circle. And your puff is going to get about 20% bigger when you bake it. So you can pipe it sort of right over the line or inside the line, and you can choose how big you want it to be. And again, if you're going to pipe just made pâte à choux, it's harder to control than if you chill it overnight. I still do a nightly cookie. Yesterday I left the freezer in our house open, and I had just gotten popsicles and they kind of melted, so I was bummed. I should have done a cookie. So I am going to show you what I made after I told you how I piped, so you can see. And I'm going to use my little quarter sheets, because then I can put a bunch of these in the oven at the same time. And with pâte à choux, just like with a cookie, you have to bake like with like. Resist the urge to put 2 different shapes or 2 different sizes on the same tray, even if that means you only have 1 on the tray. If I had a nice convection oven, I would use parchment and just move it along. But I'm going to use this because I've turned my oven up way high to get the reaction and the puff, the steam. However, I don't want the bottom browning too quickly, and this silicone mat will give me just a little bit of insulating property to sort of slow that down. So it's not going to be perfect because I haven't done this a million times in this. I've only done it a few times. So what's going to be interesting is how much puff do I get? And that puff is going to come down to, you know, did I make it right? Is there enough moisture in there? Did I develop the dough enough? All that kind of stuff. I know, I love a nightly cookie, and you can make it any size you want. It's just the nicest thing in the world. And that's how we make cookies at work, so it kind of makes sense at home. So this is my choux topping, a craquelin. It's like a little short dough cookie. It's not thin enough. I should have made it thinner, but I have that recipe on my Linktree, and when I pipe, I'm gonna make my choux, and then I'm gonna stick this on a few. I'm gonna do a couple different makeups so you can see, but I'm gonna put these back in the freezer. And then this is what I made today. So I have these in bags and I have them labeled, and I will just put, these look like little mushrooms. This is the choux with one of those little craquelins on there. So I am going to put these offset because that will help with moisture, or with airflow. So I'm gonna do 5, and I'm not gonna put these in the, I want them in the oven soon, but I'm not going to put them in until I put them in all together. Now it's even dicey of me to be putting trays that are all different because then I can't turn the oven down. But I'm going to do it anyway. These are my choux. You can call them chouquettes. It's kind of like how big are they. Some have the Swedish pearl sugar, the sucre grande, and some don't. And these are egg washed, and the ones with sucre grande are not. And I think I can do 3 across. I'm going to do 3 sucre grande, 1, 2. So this recipe is nice and small if you want to play, and I recommend you scale it 3 times. Maybe I should be careful. Scale it 3 times and then make it 3 times in a row. Okay, so I'm going to do this. So do you see how I have these offset like a triangle, the magic triangle I talk about sometimes? That is going to help with airflow. I only have a couple left. And then I have another tray. These are my éclairs. These are my éclairs, and they are egg washed. These are my itty bitty. Oh, I should do a whole tray of these. You know what? Maybe I'll do these last. These are my chouquettes. They're a little smaller than these. Okay? A little bit smaller. So I'll do those maybe after can I get 4 in there? Well, I think I can get 4. I don't know if they fit. And then here are my Paris-Brest with a little bit of sucre neige, which is the sucre grande, which is the Swedish pearl sugar, and some sliced almonds. Okay, well, I'll get these in the ovens and then come back to the chouquettes. So I'm going to put these back in the freezer. So I have egg washed with almond sliver, egg washed, not egg washed, but with some sucre grande, and these were not egg washed, but they have a craquelin. Okay, so I'm going to put these in the oven. See, do not have a fancy oven. Oh, these fit great. I think I'll do a mini. Let me set this. I'm going to check them at 15 and see if they have color and if they're puffing. So because the other guys are a little bit smaller, I think that when those have been in a couple minutes, it'll give me the time that I need. And I will. So you don't want these to puff up and be next to each other, but these are teeny tiny little chouquettes, and they make really nice little petit fours. And if you do gougères, I like them with a salad. What a nice way to add a little savory element to a salad course instead of a crouton or a piece of bread. All right. So I'll put these back in the freezer, and then we'll get to piping. I'm not going to open the oven until I let the steam out, and I'm going to do that I'm going to check them at 15 minutes. I'm going to look for a nice puff and a golden exterior starting. Then I'm going to turn the oven down and then let them dry out to color. So let me show you what my oven looks like really fast so you guys can be on board here. So we want the moisture to gather. The moisture in the oven is going to help keep the exterior of the choux flexible and expansive. Because once they reach their full expansion, then we want them to dry out. That way the moisture that's inside the starches will begin to gelatinize and firm up, and then we have a nice stable structure. So we'll check it in 13 minutes and we are gonna pipe our little hearts out. Now the one thing I don't like is my pastry brush. It's a nice one, but it's a little firm. I've actually watched chefs use makeup brushes that have never been used on anything else, and they're very soft and delicate. Now they're not NSF, so I can't recommend it. But if you have one and it's really, you want really soft, like really soft makeup brush, you want your egg wash to be even and you want it to not be drippy. And that's kind of hard to do on something so delicate. Pastry flour, I did give an example in this document. I love the Milk-Wheat-Ins recipe. They use AP flour. It works, but I think there's a little more butter and quite a bit more egg. So when you're talking more protein, you are adjusting the recipe. So you have to think about not only how you handle it, but what kind of outcome is it going to have. For this particular recipe, and it really was verified when I saw that my school's recipe aligned with the SUAS and very close to the CIA. It's different than the CIA, but anyway, I like that it aligned because it confirmed that it gives you a really soft, tender exterior that is nice when you bite through it. You don't want to have to bite the outside and have the inside squirt everywhere. So you think about those things, the overall impression. And I think the pastry flour with only 8% protein gives you a better texture. For this recipe in particular, it calls for European butter, and that is for the water content. So if you're using an American butter, you might find with less fat, it's going to be a little different. And also you're going to have a lot more water to cook off. So you might notice a lot more steam than what I had. So those are definitely going to affect not only your results, but during your cook, they're going to affect that. Those are all incredibly good questions. You're all obviously either made this before or you're getting it. Ghee has no water in it. All the water has been cooked off. And you need the water. So, and brown butter, same thing. If you use ghee or brown butter, you're going to have to find out exactly how much moisture you've lost and replace it with water. So just think about it. It's not just about the flour. It's about your desired outcome. Because if you're making a croquant bouche, you don't even use sugar because you want it to be rounder and less craggly because you're going to be dipping it into a dry caramel. You know, maybe it needs to be handled. If you're making something that needs to be sturdier, you might use a bread flour. But for what I'm doing, this is what I want to do. Irish butter is very similar to what is called a European butter. Whatever your brand is, it'll either say on it or you'll have to find out what is the fat amount. And the fat amount is going to give you an idea of how much water is in there. American butters just have a lot more water and less fat. And European butters have more fat and less water. And that's why when we did that frosting, thank you. When we did that frosting experiment, I could tell immediately the difference between American butter and the European. It's just softer. And that it's all amazing. And then they work in concert together. So when you think like an ingredient and you think, if I were butter and someone cooked off all my water, is that going to be a good swap in this recipe, or am I going to have to accommodate? Amish butter's the same way. Tell me what the butter fat amount is, and then you can figure out the water amount. And you know, I love handmade butters, but there's no way they're going to get as much water out of there as a commercially made butter. Because I made butter a lot. I have a butter churner right there. I love homemade butter. It's so easy to make and wonderful, but there's no way you can squeeze that much water out. So yeah, brown butter has all the water taken out of it. So I am on Substack, YouTube, and TikTok. I take these videos, I edit them in their entirety and put them on YouTube. Part 1 is Wednesday, part 2 is Sunday. And then on Substack, I do a lot of written work. I give you the insider information, so you can go there and see all my notes. And this is broken down by ingredient, how you bake it, what's happening, piping, egg washing, everything. Fillings, all that kind of stuff. Substack's just an app, and it's cool because, and I am starting to like it, it's not as flexible as other, so you could do any writing, you can do photos, videos, but they have to be less than 5 minutes, and they have lives. So if TikTok goes away, I might go all in on Substack. I don't know. I don't want TikTok to go away, but I'm not getting caught red-handed like I was last time. So if you've missed these lives, just go to YouTube under the Practice of Pastry and under the Baking Club, the POP Baking Club, Part 1, Part 2. Part 1 is Wednesday, demo lecture, Sundays, or we wrap it all up. So I'm going to start piping these, and then we're going to be baking what's in the oven. And then on Sunday, I'm going to come back and show you all the makeups, how to cut them, fill them, what kinds of fillings, and in between, you can find all the auxiliary videos that go with it. I'm going to be making a cremeux, which is a gelatin-based mousse. I'm going to be making a gougère filling and gougères, which are a savory cream puff. Wonderful. And I'm going to be making, what else? I made pastry cream and I made the craquelin. So those were 2 videos I did. So if you've missed all the extra stuff, I can't do it all in one night, but you'll see it all there. These recipes are available on the link tree, and there's a link tree here on TikTok and also on YouTube. And you just print it out, and I put the most recent subject at the top. The POP Baking Club Pâte Choux has the recipe, which looks like this. And print it out, take notes, have questions. If you don't get to it this week, you can always catch up later, or you can go back to the old subjects and catch up down the road, and the recipes will still be on my link tree. And even if you can't find something, just comment or DM me and I'll get to it. All right, so let's see. I'm thinking, what can I fit into my freezer? Because I have a home freezer. This is my full-time gig. I used to teach full-time at the college level, but I love TikTok, and I thought, you know what? I could do edutainment, and it's taken a while because people really want you to start and then end with this big wow. And I don't always have the big wow. I'm trying to teach a lesson, so there's not always a finished product to cut into. So I'm teaching here, and I am literally giving you everything that I gave my professional students, and I teach everything that I learned through my time in this industry since I was 15. And I went to 2 different pastry schools, and I've been working forever. So thank you. I'm having fun. And this baking club was your idea. You guys picked the recipe. I'm putting it out there, and Eli, maybe you should chime in because I got the idea from Eli. What if next week we don't have a vote? We could, but whatever. Don't freak out. But we just do pavlova because Passover's coming, and so is Easter, which is a nice time to have a show-stopping dessert that everyone can eat. And it might be fun because I've never really been able to do all the fundamentals in one video. You'd like to do that? Wouldn't that be fun? And think about this. I could do that week. Think about all the auxiliary. I can do all the auxiliary, okay? Lemon cream. I already did the pastry cream, but whatever. I can do other things. And then we can do berries. I could do a coulis of a different flavor. Yes. I'd love to do a pavlova, and I have to say, the whole rest of the world loves pavlovas. In the United States, we're so behind. I would love to do passion fruit. Pavlova is so beautiful. Yep. It's very hard to make pavlova in Miami. I agree. Are you possibly going to have a dry, cool spring? All right, so I'm going to pipe. Let me see. So here's what I'm going to tell you. If you are piping directly from the bag into the oven, you need to make sure that everything is spaced so that when it puffs up, it does not stick together. But I am going to be freezing these, so it doesn't matter how close together they are, okay? We have 1:31 on the oven. Shall we take a quick look before I commence piping? Let's see what we have going on here. They're puffing. That's so fun, isn't it? They're puffing. I still get really excited. Ay, ay, ay. You got to geek out on pastry or there's no point in doing it. It's a waste of your time. P.O.P. Do talk about it. The more you guys tell everybody about this baking club and the more people that come, the easier it makes me to survive. Because when I'm not doing well, it's not that I'm going to quit, but I just think, well, if no one wants to see it, it begins to feel a little bit cuckoo. But I've been feeling pretty good lately, and I really feel purposeful that by picking one recipe at a time, we're really able to get deep. We are making pâte choux, and I am just about to take the dough that I made and pipe it onto a tray, and I'm going to freeze these so that I can bake them later. And I have some in the oven right now that I froze prior. All right, let's see. Scrape, scrape. Got my egg wash. I like to use a half deli for egg wash. It just kind of stays nice and clean. Hold on, let me check the oven. I'm going to give them 5 more minutes. So I would have given them 20, but I wasn't sure, and so I checked them. They are not brown at all. So I'm going to give them 5 minutes. I am going to scrape this because I do not like a messy bag. I want it to stay clean. So I'm going to make sure that my choux is down in the bag, okay? So I just pipe this, so it's going to be a little bit warm. And you twist a bag and hold it between your hands here. This is keeping it closed. If you can't keep this closed, if you don't have strong hands or you have little kids doing this, or you just don't want to deal with the possibility of the mess, you can put a rubber band on there, and they sell other little tools that are great. Actually, I do recommend the Wilton ones. They're rubber and they have like a flange so that you can just hook it, and they really are tight and they work really well. I have my oven right now at 375, really hot, to get the steam going and the puff going. As soon as they are puffing, we check them. As soon as they start to take on color, I'm going to turn that oven down to 350, and I'm going to open the door and let the steam out and then close it gently. And that is going to allow them to dry out and get browner. A chip clip could work as long as it's strong. I really don't like a mess. I don't like messy, when people work messy. So, I hold it like this is off. This is on, and it could drip out. If this is dripping, and it's not, if I gave it a little, it's starting to come out. But if it were dripping, I would say you have it too loose. So the thing about piping, and you need to practice, and this might not be your medium for practicing. Make practice buttercream. I just made that the other day. But you want to practice. You're going to count in your head, 1, 2, 3. You're going to squeeze, count, stop. Do you see that little ducky? So a lot of this goes on in my head, but the more you practice, the better you get. Your goal is to get them all the same size, exactly. Now you want to stop before you pull the bag away because you don't want the big pull off. So you stop squeezing and then you pull, and when you pull off, you sort of give it a little circle to sort of flatten it out. So I will begin, and I work on this side of the tray toward me, and then I turn it and work this because you want to work close to you, okay? Let's see. All right, so I can do a little bit. So you're going to be perpendicular, straight up and down, and don't touch the board. You're going to be above it, and you don't want to go up and down or you're going to get lines. You want to hover, squeeze, hold, stop, and then do that, okay? And you can just go slowly. Your goal is to get them all the same size. And if they're not perfect, don't worry. And if you freeze them, you can choose the ones that are all kind of the same size when you go to bake them. And these can go close together because I'm going to be freezing them. So it just takes practice. It's a lot easier to pipe when it's room temp than when it's come out of the refrigerator, which is firm. And I used to pipe thousands of these at a time, so you get really good really fast. And I will stop 1 second. So these are all the same size. And because they're not going in the oven, I could do other shapes on the same tray. But if I were baking these, I would pipe them further apart. I would offset them from one another. And I'm not. I'm going to be freezing them. So there we go. So this, look at this genius. right in there. And it goes off to the side. It's my bag holder. So now I recommend, if you want, you can take a little bit of water to tamp down the dots. But I encourage you to not go overboard with the water. Okay? You have 30 seconds on the clock. Let's see. So you just want to pat the dot on the top to sort of blend it in. And it does work like magic. Just don't overdo the amount of water. And you do not have to press hard. You have to just tap, tap. And this is similar to what you might do with a buttercream or royal icing if you're doing dots or things like that. Now the reason you egg wash is to help with expansion and color. And it gives it a nice shine. All right, I'm gonna go check the oven. You guys wanna come with me? I'm gonna egg wash these anyway, and in actuality, the egg wash can do the same thing, but doing too many things at once. Typically, I focus on one thing. I'm kind of a stickler, but we are being flexible. All right, let me turn this off, and then we're gonna look. I'm not gonna open it till I assess what's going on. These look, I think I might need to move them around. But let me do this very quickly. I'm gonna move them around. First of all, I'm gonna turn the oven down. Oops. 2, 3. I know 350 on my oven is 345. Okay, you ready? All right, so I'm gonna let the air out. This is what they look like. That's crackling, absolutely beautiful. And you know what? They are getting dark on the bottom. So I'm gonna get extra trays. And as a safety rule, I tell people you should always have 2 mitts on. There's no reason to have one. You're gonna end up grabbing something you do not want to. All right, so I'm gonna move these down here. I'm gonna switch them around. These are getting double panned so the bottoms don't get too dark. I'm switcherooing, because see, oops, oh, see they moved around. See, these are already getting brown, so those are the little guys. So those are gonna go down there, and I have turned down the oven to 350. And the door's obviously been open, which is great. So I'm actually gonna give that 5 minutes, because my little guys, I need to check them. But the other ones are probably gonna take 10 to 15 maybe. You see how quickly that happens? So I am going to egg wash these. And I will admit that when I egg wash and when I do a stage or something, I have to move quick. That is something that I tend to go very slow on. So the egg wash helps with expansion just like steam does. Anything that keeps the exterior moist longer allows for it to stretch more. As soon as it dries out, it's gonna harden and then not expand anymore. And that is the same with bread. That is why in a steam injected oven, you are allowing the expansion to go as long as possible. 2 trays will just help stop that from browning on the bottom. So I always go left to right. I'm going to just go over all of them once. And I want you to think about what your egg wash is gonna look like after you bake it. If you do it super thick and drippy, you are gonna have egg all over the place. If you only do the very top and you don't do an even, thorough egg wash, you are going to have a little beautiful golden, you're gonna see everything. I don't even know what to compare it to. It's like, I mean, they say when you put fondant on a cake, that it does not cover anything up. It highlights the problems. So your egg wash needs to be thorough and neat. And there is no way I'm gonna take the time to do all this. And I don't like this brush. You need like the softest brush. And you definitely want to do this before it goes in the freezer. And you don't want any drippies on the tray, no drips, no thick parts. And I took my egg wash and I used a hand blender. That's how I got it this smooth. And I think egg wash is incredibly important to how things end up looking. And it says a lot about your work. But you want to move quickly and not mush up all your work. Everything is about moving quickly and efficiently and working clean, and it really shows in your finished product. And when I see drippy ickies on people's stuff, I just think they need to egg wash more carefully. All right. So then, to see a little bit better, I'm going to flip the tray around And then I'm gonna go along, and because I can see different angle, I'm gonna clean them up from this side because the light's just a little bit different. I don't want dough on my brush, so I'm gonna wipe it off as I clean. No drips, no globs on the tray. That just is gonna look horrible when it bakes. Okay, oops. Let me clean up that raw egg is a contaminant, so I like to keep the disinfectant nearby. All right, let me get my little craquelin. So these are not as thin as they should be. I made a gigantic batch. I re-uploaded the recipe this morning and made it smaller. They should be really thin. They shouldn't be this close if you're baking them. These are going in the freezer. So I'm gonna put these on as straight as I possibly can. I'm gonna put this in the freezer. These are too thick. That's all I can say. This would weigh it down. It's too thick. Maybe if it were going on something bigger, but they should be a lot thinner. But I just made such a huge thing of dough, and I haven't made these in a long time. And quite honestly, I've used a lot of dough sheeters, and doing them by hand is completely different. These are too close for me to even get these guys on. So this was all in all a little too close. But these should be centered and right on the top, and they shouldn't be crooked. Okay. So I'm going to put these back in the freezer, make sure they don't get condensation, and then I'm going to go stick this in the freezer. So I'll be right back, but this is what they look like. They look like little mushrooms. Once these are frozen, I can put them in deli cups, or I can put them in a Ziploc bag, and then they can be baked whenever you're ready. Genius. Let's see what's going on with my little guys. They're getting browner, but not brown enough. I'm going to do 5 more minutes. I would rather do the timer and have to keep checking it than go over. I don't want to go over. So I thought I would just maybe pipe other examples because I am just freezing them. And then so you know, tonight's the night that we're baking them, and we're going to look at them as they come out of the oven. I am going to take everything I bake and put them in a bag in the refrigerator, and then on Sunday I'm going to refresh them, and I'm going to fill them and finish them. And you will be able to see how to make them up, how to make them look pretty, and how to plate them. So I'm just using a natural pastry brush, and it's very nice, but they're so small. I just need something really soft, and maybe I'll look around for a better. This is great, and I love it if I were doing something larger. But even when I used to, so if you worked at a bakery, sometimes they have the sprayers for the egg wash. That's genius, and that's wonderful, and they're not even that expensive. If you're running a catering company or any kind of business, or you want to make things for the holidays, all of this is make ahead. That is what's so amazing about it. And my egg wash, you can sieve it. I did not, but my egg wash, and I don't know if it's on the site, but it's the one I use all the time. It's like 250 grams egg, 50-gram yolk, and then a pinch of salt. I put this in a tall deli, and I hand blend it with my hand blender, and then I pour it into here because I like working out of a half deli. And I see how there's just mess on one side? I store it like that. So everything's always staying clean. I don't have mess everywhere. Yeah, you can catch up. We're doing pâte choux. I've got some in the oven. They're almost done baking. We're waiting for them to get to color. And I piped a little bit of pâte choux, and it's in the freezer now. And the chip on top is called a choux streusel or a craquelin. And it's basically like a cookie dough, and I made a video on it. It's on my profile page the other day, I think yesterday. And you just make the dough, and you have to roll it really, really thin, and you cut it out. And if you're doing éclairs, you would cut a rectangle, and that would go on top of the éclair. So instead of egg washing, you can do the choux or the craquelin, or you can do both. And when I was at Milkweed Inn, they did a shaga mushroom, and it was brown and with a profiterole of spruce ice cream. It was unbelievable. So you can make the craquelin any flavor you want. You can use brown sugar. You can use recipes that do a 5-spice or just like a cookie, a sablé or something, any flavor. All right, so I think on here, I'm gonna show you the shape for the Paris-Brest, but I'm thinking maybe I will use this. So this is my template. It's gonna go underneath my Silpat. I'm gonna go check on my stuff real quick. Okay, they're looking good. Not dark enough. I'm gonna add 4 minutes. We'll add 4 minutes. Okay. So when you do the Paris-Brest or circle, you are going to start and end with the end. You're going to go over it, but stop squeezing so it stays flat. And you want to squeeze and kind of lift above and let it drop. Stop and then flick it off, okay? So I'm going to do this. Stop, flick it off. Squeeze. And the harder you squeeze, stop, flick it off. The harder you squeeze, the fatter your line will be. Okay. So then I'm going to egg wash these. And you can do these with a star tip. That's kind of fun. And a Paris-Brest is traditional. And it, you know, once this puffs up, you can cut it horizontally and fill it with a mousseline cream, what's the traditional cream that goes with it? I can't think. So again, with your egg wash, you want everything to be as even, not drippy. Remember, anything you put on here, even if you don't think, it's like ceramics. Have you ever gone to one of those paint your own places and the color looks nothing like what it's going to look like when it gets out of the oven? That's kind of how these are. So you need to imagine every surface has been neatly covered. And what is really nice on a Paris-Brest or some chouquettes and stuff like that, the sucre grande. But what's really nice is when you take the sugar and the sliced almonds and you mix them together. So I have some here. I'm going to add a little more of the sugar. And then this is what it looks like, slivers. And then these are going to be sprinkled on top. And maybe we can just throw these in the oven when those guys are done because we can see what the difference is. And the almonds are very traditional and they stick. Okay, and then I'll do just sugar. It has a different look. With the chouquettes, you can dip them in a dry caramel. With an éclair, you can dip it in like a fondant or a glaze, which maybe I'll make for Sunday. So these can go in the freezer, but maybe you just get some of this out of here. But those can go in the freezer and then put in a bag like I did before. Okay. Plain sliced almonds. Or are they toasted? They are raw because when they go in the oven, they are going to get toasted. And you will see the ones that I have. You know what I do? I cut the top of these off because when they get too long, it bothers me. Just be careful that you don't take off too much. But I'm going to twist it upside down into the thing. And I'm going to do an éclair for you guys. But let me check the oven. I think my little guys might be ready. What do you think? I think they are. I think these are too. All right, let's see. These are going to need a little longer. These look beautiful, but I'm going to give them, I'm going to give those 3 more minutes, and I'm going to show you what we're working with. Okay. Woo-hoo! All right. Here are the little ones. I could go a little longer, but I'm not going to because I'm going to refresh them in the oven next week. I'm going to put them on my rack. Remember the rack I showed you guys last week? Really great for cooling things. Good airflow. And then these, oops, these are my Paris-Brest. And the volume's not great. So that's something to think about. Taking notes, but the puffs came out nicely. Okay, so then the last thing I would pipe would be éclairs. And I can just eyeball it, But the eclair will get an egg wash, but no topping, because I'm going to dip them into something else. I know, I'm using like a 1 tip, so I would use a bigger tip. You want a bigger tip will give you a bigger product. So maybe I'll make some bigger ones. I'm going to make a little bit more because I want to have a lot of samples to fill on Sunday. So on the ring, it's just, this is what's making it too narrow. So I would make it a little bit bigger. In fact, this eclair is going to be too small as well. So I'll do them long this way. I'll try to squeeze them as thick as I can. And typically you don't want to do an eclair like that. You want to do a nice line. But I'm going to make these as big as I possibly can. So I will show you the proper way because I'm running out of batter. This is the proper way to make an eclair. Okay? But that is obviously too thin. So we'll see how these puff up. I'll be baking, and then I have just a little bit more in here. And just to show you, you can always get everything out of here. And if they're going in the freezer, it doesn't matter what you put on the tray because everything will be fine in the freezer. So I have a little bit in here. I'll do like a shoe, 1 shoe. And I love shoe puns. Okay, so it's not very good. So then on here, just a little egg wash. Okay, so this can go in here. This is dishes. Little egg wash on the eclair and into the freezer. And you can use water to tap down that little guy as well. Yeah, I think I'm going to need to look for a better brush. All right, gotta go check my guys. And then this is going to go back in the refrigerator. I switch into a clean container. And this is 1 day old, but it'll last 7 total into the fridge. I have my Gruyere, which melts really nicely in the gougères. I have goat cheese to make a filling. All right, I think these are a good color. And these are as well. Okay, so here's what we're working with. This is the beautiful puff with the craquelin. Can you see the crust? Little cookie crust. We can look at some of these things in the daylight. And this is the little puff. They're a little off shape, but they look good. Very light. And I'm going to break one open, but they're very hot. Let me show you what they look like up close. Okay. So this is the craquelin. You can see it just has a different look. So if you were to do that in a dark brown, brown sugar, dark spices, you would add flavor. And then there's the bottom, beautiful brown color. And then here are these little guys. These are they're bigger than these. These are my chouquettes, the little guys, and then the bigger choux. And these have an egg wash and these don't. So you can kind of see how shiny this one is and how dull the one without the egg wash is. And the formula, the way that I made it, can affect this shape, how I piped it. So if I were to be selling these, first of all, they're fine. They're going to taste great. But if you're going to sell or make money on any of this stuff, you're going to want to dial it all in. Like this one's really nice. Look how round and perfect that one is. This one has an indentation here, probably because the craquelin was so thick and heavy it like smushed it. I don't know. But you can dissect them all day and have a good time. So I'm going to crack one open so you can see. Foundational, fun. It's nothing more fun than this, I don't think. I'm going to open the one without the egg wash. What you want to find is that it's hollow and dried out, that it's not all gooey on the inside. So when you open it, ouch, it's hot. It has, see that? It has walls and they will firm up, but they're soft right now, but they're thin. This is not wet. Okay, let me open up one more. Well, okay. There we go. If this were not ready, it wouldn't have that flake. See how it stays up? So these are gonna firm up as they dry out. You just leave them and they're gonna cool and dry. That's what the cooling stage does. It allows the moisture to evaporate at such a rate that the parts that need to dry out and set will. And then when you are ready to make this into a cream puff, we're going to take a star tip and poke a hole in the bottom, and then we're going to take a pastry bag full of pastry cream and a small round tip, and we're going to fill it up, and we're going to feel that puff, and we're going to keep squirting it in there, not just till it comes back out, but all the way till we can feel it filling in every crack and crevice. So this thing weighs a lot. It's going to look little, but it's going to be heavy. And you only put the pastry cream and fillings in about an hour before you serve them, or right when you're ready to serve them. Otherwise, they'll get soggy. And that's another layer of why these things are special. They're just not meant to be done any old way. They're meant to be special with extra care and extra thought. It's like an intellectual pursuit to dial these things in, because you have a lot to think about. You have the ingredients, the mix, the cook, the bake, the cooling, the filling, did it get served right? How does it look? How is it topped? How can I change it? It's fascinating, endlessly fascinating. That's called sucre grand, or grand. It's big sugar, sweet. Let me get the package. Getting the sugar. So this is called Swedish pearl sugar and non-melting sugar. You don't necessarily want to put regular 10X onto your choux. It could dissolve. Probably not, because these are pretty dry, but just depending on the weather and whatnot. So I use non-melting or sucre neige, which is like donut sugar or snow sugar. This isn't going to melt because it's actually made with dextrose and cornstarch, palm oil. Dextrose. Instead of sugar, this is made from beet sugar. Pearl sugar, Swedish pearl sugar. This isn't even open because these are the big kind. But the kind that I was using, it's called non-melting sugar. And these will stay white. They won't melt. They'll stick to your choux and they'll look like that. And so you can use a lot. It's very, very pretty. So there's just so many ways to go. So I think the craquelin would be great as a profiterole, especially if you give it a good flavor. And I bought baklava. No, wait. Let me see what kind of ice cream I bought. Oh, I know why. Because you guys were all talking about tres leches. So I bought tres leches ice cream. So I think this would be really good as a profiterole. So I can save these in a bag and refresh them on Sunday, and then add ice cream and a little sauce on the top, maybe a little caramel. And then you have a beautiful dessert, all from like the same dough. Okay. Well, that is what I have. What more can we do? What more is there to talk about? I want to answer some of your questions. Woo! This is where I need my drink, my poppy. Oh, I'm going to put them in to refresh the choux once they've been refrigerated or at room temperature for a couple days in a dry spot. I mean, the fridge isn't dry, but 350 just till you can smell them. You're just going to knock the moisture out of them. Is there any way to keep them from getting soggy, fast, or inevitable? Well, they shouldn't be inevitable. I can get these onto a cooling rack so that they stay dry. And if I refresh them, and then as soon as they're cool, I fill them and I serve them within an hour. And once you fill them, if you're going to serve them in 20 minutes, they need to go in the cooler. But they shouldn't get soggy if you baked them until they're all the way dry. That's just like what people putting syrup on a cake or wrapping it while it's warm. You're ruining all the work you did. So if the work that you did is to get this just the right amount of dry, they shouldn't be soggy. And then when you fill them, you should then serve them. Like every aspect until that thing is on a dessert eater's plate is in play. It is a variable that you have to control, and you can control it. So if it's soggy, think about what caused it and how can I prevent it. Not how can I trick it or fix it or hack it, but like what happened and then how can I fix it now or fix it next time? And it always comes down to time, temperature, and moisture. Always. So these sugars I got on probably Amazon, but they also, if you Google Swedish pearl sugar, there are some Swedish importers that sell like a lot of licorice, and they specialize in these. These are really big. I don't want to open it though because I don't want the moisture to go in there. Gorge, gorge, gorge. And I love, you know, I don't love a lot of food coloring. When you get stuff like this, you can decorate it on a cake, and just like those cakes I did last week with the gray, the blueberry, how pretty would a little sprinkling of this been? Like I love pearls and whites and creams, and I'm boring. I mean, I'd rather set people up to win and have everyone win and just kind of talk about how great everyone did. Okay, so this is how it works. And someone today asked me, how can they join the baking club? So the POP Baking Club is what this is right now, right here. It's free. You don't even need to sign up. You just need to show up on Wednesdays at 6 p.m. and on Sundays at noon Eastern Standard Time in the United States. And if you miss it, all you have to do is go to YouTube and watch part 1 and part 2. Every week, you guys pick a new recipe, and I focus the entire week on that one recipe and anything that could possibly go with it. So if you miss something, go to YouTube, and if you're like, I need to make the pastry cream, or how do you make the craquelin? I made a video about it. So go and watch my videos, share, like, do whatever you can to help the algorithm know that this is here, because everyone's really nice to each other, and it's a very engaging baking community. Everyone is very involved, and I love it. I write notes for every recipe that I do, and I put it on my Substack, and you can go get them, print them, and use them for this recipe. So again, every week, one recipe. This week is pâte choux. I just lectured all about it, and then I demoed how to make and bake it. On Sunday, I'm going to come back, and I'm going to show you how to refresh them, how to cut them, fill them, top them, and plate them, and answer any questions that I've left you hanging on so that you have all the information that you need. If you want more information, I have more videos on my profile page. If you miss anything, go to YouTube. If you want more information that's in the written form, go to Substack. And if you just want to have a good time and come and pretend like you are in real life in a baking and pastry arts class, this is what's happening right here. I am a certified executive pastry chef. I've been in the industry since I was 15. I have a degree and a certificate in baking and pastry arts. So I just feel like if you guys all had the information, you could solve and answer the questions just like I do. And instead of reading a recipe and white knuckling it, you can literally look at it, diagram it out, break it down, and think like an ingredient, one ingredient at a time, and then how do they all work together? And then someone just said there's always deflates. Well, perhaps you are not cooking out enough of the water. Perhaps you have made the dough too wet. Perhaps you baked it and before it was really done, you took it out of the oven and it got soggy and it collapsed. So now that I've shown you all these things, and again, if you missed, just go to YouTube and watch it again. You can begin to, by making small batches, one step at a time, making it over and over again until you get better. And that's why I love, to be quite honest, I've been so creative lately doing all these different recipes you guys recommend. I've learned so many new names in the baking industry and tried so many new books. However, the love of my life is doing one thing at a time and going really, really deep. So that's what we're doing. And then next week, we are not going to have a vote. We are going to do the pavlova. That'll be great for Eli and for people who have Passover meals and maybe you just want something fancy. It'd be nice for Easter too because it's brightly colored and you can make it fun for Easter brunch. I'll tell you one quick story. I went to a King Arthur demo in Milwaukee at MATC, and the guy, the bread baker, showing everybody, we had 100 people in this kitchen. He banged his hand on an unfamiliar piece of equipment and it was bleeding and banged. It was his right hand. And I felt so bad for him because when you hurt yourself at the beginning of the day and you have a whole day of demos and whatnot, it's just a hard day. So he had a hard day, but he wrapped that thing up and he was a trooper. I don't sell my baked goods. I just teach. I teach you how to bake because I want you to be baking at your optimum. I want you to be able to solve problems, think like an ingredient, and bake to your best of your ability by following really good practices, going one step at a time, starting out by reading the recipe, making labels, scaling the ingredients, diagramming out the recipe, reading through the procedure, making it right, baking it right, cooling it properly, and then having really good results. And if you take notes and have problems, you can go back and backtrack. It's the smartest way to work. Well, thanks everybody. I actually did it in almost 2 hours. Woo, that's amazing. You are welcome. Thank you so much for everyone coming and participating. I wouldn't be able to do this if I didn't have such great invested learners. You guys are very open learners. You come with a learning mindset. You have great questions. So I will see you all on Sunday. Happy baking. I'm so glad I found all of you. Oh, thank you. You're the best part of my week. I look forward to Wednesdays and Sundays. Like, I used to get a little nervous, but now I'm just excited and can't wait to get going. And it really kind of helps me my information. I've learned so much just since we started. All right. Well, I have trouble saying goodbye. I hate goodbyes, but I appreciate you all. Happy baking. Have a wonderful rest of your week. We're almost at the weekend, and I will see you Sunday, and we will put these things together beautifully and get to see how delicious they are. Yeah, hang up first. Exactly. You hang up first. No, you hang up first. See you Sunday. Okay, I'm going to do it. I hate this. I'm hanging up. Bye, guys. Happy baking.